Everyone, and welcome to a special Polkadot live stream tutorial. And today we're talking all about OpenGov. OpenGov is Polkadot's governance platform. And I'm your host, Evan. Today we have with us Mr. Bill Laboon, author of the Daily Polkadot Digest. And Bill, your title is Technical Educator at Web3 Foundation? Is that right?
No, it's actually, I
Oh,
mean, I am a technical educator, but
okay.
I'm Director of Education and Governance Initiatives.
Director of Education and Governance Initiatives. And you can follow Bill on X at Bill Laboon. We also have Limo, the newly christened Polkadot head ambassador, or a newly christened Polkadot head ambassador. Chaos DAO Chieftain, I guess you could call him that. Chief Nice Officer at Nova Sama Technologies, which of course is the makers of Nova Wallet app. And you can follow Limo on X at Limo. So as I said, today we're going to cover all things OpenGov. We'll end with a step-by-step tutorial on how you, the dot holder, can create a treasury proposal and participate in Polkadot's governance. So I think, Bill, let's start with you. What sets Polkadot's governance apart from other networks?
So I think there's really a couple of different things. One is that Polkadot governance is extremely powerful and can change anything really about the relay chain and even some of the system parachains. So as long as you have 50% plus one of dot holders behind you in something, you can make some very major changes to the network just due to the architecture of Polkadot, how it works, the ability to have forkless upgrades, et cetera. It's extremely democratic. There's no perfect world, but there are no really special accounts or multi-sigs controlling things, but rather everything about how the network works and how it evolves is up to the dot holders. It's extremely scalable. So we can have not just one or two referenda at a time, but actually hundreds at a time. We actually have 80 referenda up for a decision as of at least of a few minutes ago when I checked. And finally, it's really flexible. So this sounds very challenging, like having all this ability for all of these referenda to do things. But we also can hand off power to collectives, bounties, parachains. It can have their own governance system. So we have like a wish for change track if you don't want to actually write code, but rather suggest things. So it's a very flexible, democratic, and powerful system that I think is different than any other ecosystem out there in terms of governance.
Right. A lot of other ecosystems or networks claim to be decentralized, but with Polkadot OpenGov, as you said, the future of the network is actually decided by the dot holders. And so the latest version of OpenGov now is an evolution of some earlier instances of it. Can you tell us a bit about how things evolved?
Sure. So the Polkadot network started with actually a single super user account that could do whatever it wanted. As we got the network up and running and got staking initialized and stuff. But we very quickly moved on to what we call Gov1, which was our initial governance mechanism on Polkadot, which was very similar to what we have now. That in that referenda are automatically enacted. And the dot holders could vote on them, but it had a lot of constraints, right? So there was a technical committee that had some limited powers, but these were special accounts built into the system that could allow for, that was the only way to allow multiple referenda to occur at the same time. Everything happened on the same track, and so you had a lot of like a log jam of referenda trying to get through. And of course, you had special accounts that were voted in, like the council, the Kusama Council and the Polkadot Council. That meant that it was not one dot, one vote. And so what we did eventually is move to OpenGov, which we'll talk a little bit more about today. But this gave us a lot of benefits. So one is that we can have lots of referenda. It is one dot, one vote. And we actually have different tracks so that have different capabilities. And so, for instance, something happening technically is not going to influence something that's a treasury proposal and vice versa.
Got it. And it seems like that was the right route to take, like a natural progression, slow evolution with Gov V1 and to see how things play out and then, take it from there. Because if we just went straight to OpenGov as we have it now, it could have just been, total Wild West. And it still can be a bit of a Wild West, but I think that made sense, that timeline. So how big is the treasury today, Polkadot's treasury?
Yeah, so just going over this a bit, like the Treasury is like one part of governance. There's lots of other aspects of governance in terms of like the runtime upgrades and the technical parameters, staking parameters, et cetera. But the Treasury, I know a lot of people talk about that because it is quite big. I don't know if it is the largest Treasury out there. It's the largest I know of any blockchain. It's actually rather complicated, so it's hard to get a precise value. Most of the assets in the Treasury are in DOT, and so the value of those change all the time. But the Polkadot Treasury itself is a complicated entity. It's not just some account on the Relay chain. It actually exists on multiple chains, including the Asset Hub. There's even like special accounts for it on Hydration, and contains multiple assets. So it's mostly DOT, but also USDC, USDT. It can handle other assets in the future. It also has like some loans to other entities in the ecosystem. So we actually have this like a very complicated system. This is why Alice and Bob put together the Treasury report to come up with one value and understand what all is happening. But in total, it's about $245 million US worth. Of which about 188 million US dollars worth is liquid that can actually be used immediately.
Got it. And thanks for referencing Alice and Bob's report. So for the viewers that are curious about that, if you go onto Twitter and search Alice_und_Bob, Tommy is his name. He received a DF grant to kind of audit and keep an eye on OpenGov and share reports with the community and so on. So there's some really interesting things that he does with OpenGov Watch, it's called.
Yeah.
So you told
really quick. Yeah. It's a really interesting report. Just like what all the Treasury has been spent on. I know there's been a lot of like very very quick like snippets from it, but actually reading the whole report is quite interesting of what it's being used for, what it's been used for in the past.
Right. And that report kicked off a bit of a controversy, you could say, last week when some of the spending reports came out. But no, it's great to have Tommy working on that. Okay, so you told us how big the Treasury is. How is the Treasury funded? Like, where does the DOT and the other assets that are in the Treasury, where do they come from?
So all of these assets start originally as DOT. There is an inflow of DOT as a part of the staking reward. So as a part of the inflation of the network, right? So DOT is an inflationary token, and as DOT are created, a percentage of them are given to nominators. Those who are staking in the system, and a percentage of that is allocated to the Treasury. So a percentage of this this percentage actually varies depending on what percentage of the network is staking. We plan to change that in the near future so that a more consistent amount goes in. But all of this is DOT coming in as part of the network producing blocks. Essentially, it's almost a side effect of the network continuing to exist. So like Fabi had mentioned something like the Treasury can never go to zero because it's always getting an inflow. Right, every era, every day in Polkadot, some more DOT goes to the Treasury.
Got it.
So this is the main way that DOT gets into the Treasury. There are some other ways. It's sort of like a normal account. You could just send some DOT to it if you want to donate. Or we actually see like some teams, they got too much DOT for one reason or another, and so they send it to the Treasury. And any other asset in there, essentially, it's either someone sent it to there, which is also possible that you could just you make a meme coin, you want the Treasury to have some of it, you can just send it to that account. But most of like USDT, USDC, all of this happened through some governance decision, right? That we wanted to make a change. We didn't want to have the entire Treasury in DOT. I think we've seen a lot of other ecosystems that had a lot of they had a huge Treasury, but it was all in their own token. This can be very problematic and sort of lead to a negative feedback loop, I guess. And so we actually have like multiple ways that other assets get in. One of the most interesting, I think, is this ongoing automation of sending DOT in the Treasury over to the Hydration network parachain to be swapped for USDT and USDC, which can eventually get paid out to the Polkadot Technical Fellowship, who are producing, you know, like, and improving the chain, which means that there'll be more staking rewards, and it really is like a circle, right? You know, we got this flywheel happening where the developers, the Polkadot Technical Fellowship, actually get their salary paid by the network itself. Like, to me, this always blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like, we're living in the future where the blockchain is paying for itself to improve.
Right. And the way that their ranking works as well, it's all on chain. And, you know, it's, I guess the ambassador program kind of took a similar approach or a similar structure, you could say.
Yeah, I mean, this is something, you know, like the collectives parachain is, you know, it's very powerful. I'd like to see more collectives. You know, we have the anti-scam team on there too. You know, doing things on chain makes so much more sense, right? You know, that's what we're here for. We all believe that. We want truth. We want things to happen in a mathematically provable way. So we should do, I would love to see, like, you know, more and more things like this happening on chain.
Limo, let's come to you next. Bill, I think you said there's 88 referenda currently up for vote at the moment. I mean,
80, I think.
80, yeah. I mean, it's really can be difficult or daunting for people to kind of keep track of them, to read through the proposals, to you know, vet the teams and so on. So if someone does have some DOT and they can't, you know, put in the time to look at all these proposals, Limo, is there anything that they could do with that DOT to make sure that it's being put to use? And are there any apps, any useful apps out there that allow you to do it?
Yeah, so you guys are exactly right. There's so many referenda each day, like 10 a day or something at times. I think it's close to 1,000 referendum in OpenGov since it started on Polkadot. So it's a lot of overhead. But what you can do if you hold DOT and you stake in it, for example, you can delegate it to another account, right? So for example, if you're not very technical, on the root track, for example, you could delegate your DOT to one of the core developers of Polkadot, for example, from the fellowship, right? And you trust them to make a good decision on your behalf, right? So when they vote on something, you automatically vote alongside them. There is also the Decentralized Voices program from the Web3 Foundation, where the Web3 Foundation delegates their own DOT to voices in the ecosystem. So you should look at who Web3 Foundation are delegating to, maybe, and that can be like a nice short list of people to delegate to if you're trying to find people. In terms of applications, there's two that off the top of my head. So the first one is, I think it's delegation.polkadot.network. This is a desktop application, and you can find a bunch of people to delegate to there. Otherwise, there is Nova Wallet. I work at Nova Wallet, so maybe I'm really biased. But you can find a list of a bunch of groups or individuals with like a description of who they are, how they vote and stuff. And you can delegate to them in like 2 clicks, basically. There's other ways to make it easier for DOT holders that is coming soon. It's a little teaser for some Nova Wallet updates. But delegations is definitely the current way if you don't have time to review referenda. And then in the future, there will be a nice, easy way as well.
Nice. And I like that you pointed out that you can delegate certain tracks to individuals. So me, for example, I'm not very technical. So, you know, for those tracks, I just delegate it to someone who I trust in the ecosystem. There's also, you know, there's a lot of talk of like if a whale can have control of the network, or the big DOT holders or holders of any network. But Polkadot has conviction voting, which allows you to lock up your DOT for a specific amount of time in return for a bigger vote, essentially. Can you just tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so for example, if you have 100 DOT, you can vote with different conviction multipliers. So there's 0.1x, which makes your 100 DOT vote a 10 DOT vote, but there's no extra lockup, right? So as soon as the referendum's over, you can unlock the DOT from voting and get that back. Then there's 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x, and 6x. Each one of those, it multiplies your vote. So if you vote with 6x conviction, your 100 DOT will turn into a 600 DOT vote, right? But this lockup period, it increases depending on the conviction that you set. So for example, 1x conviction is 7 days currently, 2x is 14 days, 3x is 28 days, and then you've got 4x is 56, 5x 112. So you can really lock up your dot for quite a long time if you feel like very strongly about a referendum, which a lot of people do that, right? A lot of people vote with like 5x, 6x conviction on certain referenda that they feel very passionate should pass or should not pass.
Got it. And we had a question pop in from one of the viewers. They asked if there was an easy way to delegate from a cold wallet to a hot wallet, and I guess that's the same as just delegating from one account to another. So if they're using Ledger or if they're using a paper wallet, that is possible.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that. You can delegate, or you can use proxies, which is a completely separate thing. But you can set your hot wallet as a governance proxy to your cold wallet, and then your hot wallet can vote and everything on behalf of the cold wallet. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Limo. Bill, if you wouldn't mind, would you tell us a bit about sort of the approval period and the voting curve and support and how that all works? Because I think for a lot of newcomers, this can be a little bit confusing to them when they see these graphs and these curves, and they don't. It's kind of hard to grasp at first. At least it was for me. So, if you would like to share your screen and kind of walk us through how it works.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. If you once you see the graphs and has someone walk through it, it makes much more sense than trying to explain it all in words. And I'm going to apologize here. I know that not everyone is a huge fan of Polkadot.js app. It's a very developer-friendly interface, but I do think actually the UI is very easy to understand and makes a lot of sense here. So let me make this a little bigger for people. So let's just see, like right here, we have this root decision being made. So we have two aspects of OpenGov. And essentially we need, if you're trying to get something passed, you need your referendum to be above approval levels and support levels for a specific amount of time. The amount of time varies and the percentages vary from track to track, but it's always the same idea. So approval is just your basic, what you think of as voting. What percentage of the people voting have voted for this? So here we can see 99.9% of all of the DOT that have voted for this particular referendum have voted in favor. And the percentage necessary starts very high. So you can see 99.9%. But as time goes on, the minimum approval may be hard to see in this, like goes down to 92%. As time goes on, it gets lower and lower. So this is essentially to make sure, right, it's easier to pass. If everybody agrees on something, like why not just let it get pass earlier? But as time goes on, it goes down, just like most tracks, down to 50%. So as long as 50% plus one approve of something, then it can pass. The second thing that's a little more complicated is the support level. So the support is the percentage of all DOT that is available for voting. So you can see here, there is a total issuance and inactive issuance, which is DOT that cannot be used for voting for one reason or another, and active issuance. So 1.4 billion DOT. So the idea is that you essentially need a quorum to make something pass. You need a certain percentage voting for it. And this quorum is going to, if you have 99.9% voting in favor, but it's only 10 DOT voting for it, right? That doesn't really mean that that's what the DOT holders want. So here there's the support level, which is the percentage of all DOT holders that have active DOT that voted either aye or abstain. So abstain is just like, hey, I'm voting, but I'm not saying yes or no. And you can see on the root track, this is very high support level because the root track is the most powerful track. So you need a very large percentage of the holders voting, although this will eventually also go down to zero. But this is just to make sure that for something very powerful like the root track, people actually have time to decide. Right, and see this. You can't quickly pass something, unless some huge percentage of the DOT vote for it. So just we can take a look at this, these curves, as we call them, the amounts that you have support and approval you have to reach, and then let's look at something that's very not very important, a small tipper track, which only allows you to spend up to 250 DOT, which worst case scenario that's not very bad. So let's look at a referendum here, you can see the curves look very different. This curve for approval, what percentage needs to be in favor of it, goes down. This orange line goes down very quickly to 50%. Over the course of I think that's like 10 days or 7 days or something like that, and then it's 50%. The support level drops off very, very quickly, right? So that after a few days, as long as you have 1% that voted aye or abstain, then it can pass. So again, if you look at all these different tracks, some of these have they have different shapes of the curve, and these shapes were developed by researchers here at Web3 Foundation to trade off the power of the track with the ability to get things done in a reasonable amount of time. So some things like referendum canceller, you may actually have to get done very quickly. If there's a bad referendum, you're by definition going to have less time to cancel it because that referendum already exists. And so the curves for that are very different. There's been a lot of thought behind these, and these curves have also changed as we figured out what works and what doesn't. And again, what I think is interesting is that these changes actually occurred as a result of governance. Right. So again, we see this this wheel turning.
Bill, thanks so much, because that was perfectly explained and really easy to understand. I wish I had that same tutorial when I first was taking a look at OpenGov. And I love the design of it with the approval and support. It's very interesting. And I think Gavin, didn't he design board games, and he's really into game theory and so on from back in the day. So
yeah, exactly. So he wrote, he made a board game, Milton Keynes, I think it's called.
Okay.
Yes, I've never actually played it, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I know he's he's into like political theory and how voting works and so on. So it's cool to see it play out on OpenGov. And Limo, let's go over to you next. Last week when that Treasury report came out, I think it really opened a lot of people's eyes, or it made it clear that you can come to Polkadot with a great idea, and if you can articulate it and put it into a proposal, you can get funding for it. And I think that was really interesting to a lot of people. But we had a lot of questions, like, how do I actually create a proposal? So would you mind walking us through that step by step?
Yep. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So unlike Bill, we're not going to use Polkadot.js for this. So the Treasury actually has granted money to two governance applications in the Polkadot ecosystem. One of them is Subsquare, and the other one is PokeAssembly, which is what we'll use today to run you through how to make a referendum. So basically, it's like any other dApp. You connect your wallet to it. So I'm connected here under the Lima wallet that I have. So then you can press Create Treasury Proposal up here and select the correct account, so the Lima account. If previously you made a discussion post before you posted the referendum, you can link to it here, but this is a brand new one, so we're not going to do that. So then we need a title for this referendum. So Evan, do you have an idea for a title for this?
I think let's do a small tip to Bill for his time today. Can we do that?
Small tip to Bill.
Sure. And you should get a tip too, as Limo as
then
well.
I need Bill's address as well. So you can you put the title and then a description. So a tip for the Polkadot live stream, right? And you can put as much information here as you want. And then we're going to press next. I do not have an existing preimage. So the preimage is like a store of data on chain, which instructs the chain when the referendum is completed, when it's approved, what it actually does. So I don't have an existing preimage in this case. So this is my address, the one that I already have connected to PokeAssembly with. And for this instance, I'm going to paste in my address, even though it's supposed to be for Bill. Sorry, Bill. And then you can request DOT or USDT or USDC very easily here. In this case, I'm going to request some DOT. Let's request 10 DOT. So you can see here, it tells you again, the funding amount is for 10 DOT, and it automatically sets the track. So like we said before, the small tipper can spend up to 250 DOT, I believe it is. Whereas if we increase it to 1,000, you can see it automatically changes it to the big tipper, which can spend up to 1,000 DOT. So you don't need to really worry when you're using PokeAssembly about which track you should submit your referendum to. But in this case, let's do 10. So it's on the small tipper. And why won't it let me create pre-image? Here we go. So now it's loaded the details. So you need about 40 DOT to store the pre-image on chain. When your referendum is finished, you can request that back easily.
Yeah, so it is refundable.
It's 100% refundable, yeah. So then let's create the pre-image. And now I have my pop-up for my wallet. So let me put in my password.
Yep. Blockchain doing its blockchain thing.
So now the pre-image has been posted on chain. So now in the PokeAssembly UI, you can see the track is small tipper. It's for 10 DOT. Here's your pre-image hash if you want it, and a link to it. So then now we can create the proposal itself. And again, it tells you the amount of DOT that you need. So it's 1 DOT that we need extra. So let's sign this transaction.
Amazing.
And that should be it. So we've successfully created a referendum. So if we press view proposal, which I think, did it jump to the correct screen?
No, we're still on where it didn't.
Okay, so we will go to the small to the track here.
Yeah.
Try and find our referendum.
There
If
it is.
Is that the one? It might not be that one, but it maybe will take like a minute or so, and then you will see a referendum on PokeAssembly here. And if you made some mistake when making the referendum, you can edit the title or the description. So it's actually pretty simple.
Could you click into that top small tipper so we can just look at the support and for the curves for small tipper? What it looks like on PokeAssembly?
We share this tab. Okay, so sorry, I clicked it wrong. Here. So can you see it now?
Yes, now we see the Ref 971.
Yeah, so you can see here the curves that Bill was showing on Polkadot.js before. It's also visible on PokeAssembly. And you can see in this case, it's 75% I and 25% near. So PokeAssembly really shows you all the information that you need to understand how the referendum's going. Yeah.
And I always like to click in view voting history because I'm just curious how people are voting. And, if you right above the chart there, I like to look at that as well. And you can sort it by voting power and so on. So, wow, I mean, we literally just created a proposal. And what was that, like 90 seconds or something? I mean, that was really quick. I will caveat with saying that Alice and Bob, who we referenced earlier, Tommy, he says that you should always put in a discussion first. That's sort of like a best practice to kind of get feedback from the community before you submit the proposal. We skipped that step here, but I just wanted to mention that as well. Wow. Okay, so it is actually quite easy to put in a proposal. That's that's pretty cool. One thing I love doing every week is watching AAG, Attempts at Governance. It's on the Kusumerians channel. It's usually on X, on YouTube. And well, why don't you tell us what that is, Limo?
Yeah, so the Kusumerian is this like podcast that we have twice a week. So on Monday it is Kusama, so the sister chain of Polkadot, and the parachains like hydration that Bill mentioned before. We talk about all the governance that's going on those chains. And then on Thursday we have the Polkadot specific show, where we talk about a bunch of referendums. It's sort of impossible to go through all of them in a couple of hours, but the most important ones we discuss. We get the people that submitted the referendum on, people ask them questions. It's like a nice town hall to try and help token holders understand what a referendum's about, and maybe get the proponent to answer anything that we think they've missed in their submission.
And for all the viewers that are new to Polkadot, or even the people that have been in the community for a while but haven't seen the AAG, I highly, highly recommend checking it out. It's usually, as Lima said, Thursdays at around 4:30 or 2:30 UTC, I believe.
It's free UTC.
3 UTC. But it's just a really good way to kind of keep up to date with what's going on. what are the controversial things happening, what's getting funding, what's not, what is sort of the community feeling about some of the proposals. So I, again, highly recommend people to tune into AAG. And the easiest way to find it would be to go onto Twitter and search for the Kusumerian and follow that account. Okay, cool. I mean, that was actually a lot quicker than I expected because the creating that proposal only took a few minutes. But Bill, was there anything else that you kind of wanted to finish with? Any closing thoughts about OpenGov?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's like lots of there's always going to be questions, right? We went over this very briefly, but I would say like watching attempts at governance, looking at Polk Assembly. If you have questions, the Polkadot Wiki is an amazing resource, wiki.polkadot.network, or following me or Limo. I write a daily Polkadot digest, as you mentioned, of like what's happening in Polkadot, especially in governance when there's like very interesting stuff happening. So like, following us, watching attempts at governance. If you have questions, reading the wiki, checking out the Polkadot forum at forum.polkadot.network. There's lots of information out there about Polkadot, and OpenGov specifically in these locations.
And people can find you on Twitter at Bill Laboon, right?
Yep, all one word, Bill Laboon.
Spell out your last name for us, Bill.
Laboon.
At Bill Laboon. And for you, Limo, it's just at Limo.
At Limo XD. Somebody stole.
At Limo XD. Okay, got it. And Limo, you're in Brussels at the moment for Polkadot Decoded tomorrow, right?
I am. I'm very excited about Polkadot Decoded tomorrow.
And you actually have a presentation, I believe.
We do. We have a presentation on Friday at like 2:30 local time. It's going to be very good. I hope people tune in to that.
Nice. And for all the viewers, Polkadot Decoded is Polkadot's flagship event. It's happening over tomorrow and Friday in Brussels, sort of running parallel to ECC. If you happen to be in Brussels and have an ECC ticket, you can actually go to Polkadot Decoded for free, but you have to register because capacity is limited. But it's a great place for networking, hearing presentations, discovering what's happening in the Polkadot ecosystem. You can talk to VCs, you can talk to builders, entrepreneurs. It's really a great place to get more acquainted with what's happening in Polkadot and OpenGov and so on. So that's tomorrow and Friday. And follow the Polkadot account. We'll post another link to Polkadot Decoded's registration today. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you get that tip, Limo. I'll go in and vote for it now. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all the viewers for